Hello and welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for All Missouri Students, sponsored by the Missouri Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at moacac.org. And also, this session is being recorded and would be available within about a week at that same website, moacac.org. And now I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. And good evening, everybody. My name is Evan Favreau. I am an Associate Director in the Office of Admission at Drake University. And I'm here to give you a preview of what Drake University is all about. I will share my screen here to go over that information. So let me get that going here real quick. Okay, so you should have the screen there visible. And like I said, this is really going to be a good overview of the basics of Drake. There's a lot that we can cover here, and there's a whole bunch more that you probably won't learn about here that you can explore in more detail in the coming weeks and months as you continue with your college search. But I do want to say, just as I get started here, I'll be kind of going through this presentation, and there will definitely be time at the end of the presentation to go over questions. So as I go through different topics, if there's anything that I touch on that you would like to learn more about, or if there are things that you want to learn about that I don't mention at all, definitely throw those questions into the Q&A with the Zoom feature. I won't be answering those questions as I go, but once I get to the end, like I said, we will definitely have some time. So I'll be able to make sure that we get those questions answered. If we happen to run out of time to answer questions, I will be able to follow up with students after the presentation as well to make sure we get you the info. But with that, let's dive in and get a sense of what we're talking about here with Drake and really who makes up Drake University. So of course, probably the most important part, not probably, definitely the most important part of Drake University are the people. The Bulldogs, who are students and alumni. We also, of course, have our mascot, which is another Bulldog, Spike. He's our athletic mascot that you'll see running around at basketball games, getting the crowd all hyped up. But the most important, to some, the most important part is GRIFF. We love Bulldogs at Drake. That is our mascot. We are the Drake Bulldogs, if you didn't know that yet. And at Drake, we actually do have our own Bulldog. So this Bulldog you're seeing on screen right now is GRIFF 2, technically. We've had a live mascot program for a few years now, and we started with the original GRIFF, and he actually just retired this past summer. So GRIFF 2 is new to the job as of a few months ago. And he's pretty awesome. I fortunately have been able to meet him even before we had a lot of restrictions in place due to what's going on currently. And he's amazing. And having a live mascot is a really special thing for us at Drake, and he's one of our important community members for sure. So hopefully you'll meet GRIFF 2 on campus sometime in the future when you come visit. He does like to come hang out with a lot of our visiting students. We also, as a nickname, we call him George. So if you see us call him George or GRIFF 2, we're talking about the same Bulldog. But beyond the people and the dogs that are part of Drake University, what is Drake in general? What are those basic characteristics that make up our school? We are about 3,000 undergraduate students. So Drake, in terms of our size, we definitely fall into that medium range in terms of the type of college experience you can have at Drake. When you think about medium schools, we're probably still on the smaller end of that kind of medium range that you will typically see described. But the experience is very much that of a medium school that has the best of both worlds. I should say, in addition to our roughly 3,000 undergraduate students, we do have about 2,000 students that are in our graduate programs. So we do have about 5,000 total students on campus, but specifically for undergraduate, we're looking at just under 3,000 students. So with those students, I think it's really good to point out where they're coming from, because that is a really big part of the experience when you're on campus and there as a community member. 70% of our students at Drake in undergrad are coming from out of state, so they are mostly not from Iowa. I should point out, we'll talk more about this in a sec, but Drake is located in Des Moines, Iowa, if you were also not familiar with that. So again, most of our students are coming from outside of the state, and that really does inform that experience that you have on campus. Drake is not a commuter school. And I don't know if you've heard that term before, but that kind of is referring to a school that might have a lot of students, like a really large number of students that don't live on campus or live, further away from campus. But we're also not like a suitcase campus. And I remember when I was going through the college search, that's something that my mom would always ask about is this a suitcase campus? The idea that it's a school where students are there for school, and then on a lot of weekends, they go home because they're, only an hour away from home, or they're close by where they're originally from. That's not the situation at Drake for most of our students. Again, with all these students being from out of state, we have a lively, truly residential campus. So students are actually living on campus the first 2 years at Drake, and after that, they're typically moving off campus, but still living in the Drake neighborhood. So it really does build up this community that you can participate in as a student, knowing that there's always going to be students and friends around every week, every weekend, every night, and you'll be able to engage in a lot of student organizations and other activities and things like that while you're on campus. It's never a ghost town. There's never going to be a weekend where you have nothing to do, for sure. When it comes to academics, we do have over 100 undergraduate programs. So this is one of those good kind of aspects of Drake that really speaks to some of the larger school opportunities that we can still provide. The fact that we have over 100 majors and programs in a wide range of areas is pretty great for any student, because it's going to allow you to either come in and start in the major that you want right away, or you're going to be able to mix and match and try different things. When we have this widespread kind of availability of majors, it's easy to double major, triple major sometimes, or add on minors and concentrations. The vast majority of Drake students are doing some kind of double major or minor or concentration. And when we talk about majors, and I'll go through and touch on some highlights from these different programs here in just a sec. But when you think about majors, I do want to really stress, if you are going through the college search right now, and you think you might know what you want to study, but you're not totally sure, or if you have like no idea where to even start, that's totally okay. At Drake, even though you do get to start at Drake as a student and start taking classes in your major right off the bat, it's also perfectly normal for you to come in as an open or undecided student and be willing to just explore and try some different things. We have dedicated advisors that actually work with our open and undecided students. So they can help you kind of explore and get a feel for what these 100 plus programs are and where you might want to try out some classes and maybe find your perfect fit. But just to quickly touch on what we actually offer in a little bit more detail. We do have the College of Arts and Sciences, which is our biggest and broadest college in terms of what we offer in terms of majors and programs within that. So we do have fine arts and performing arts that are part of that college. But we also do have natural sciences, social sciences, humanities. That's where you're going to find a lot of those kind of traditional liberal arts types majors and programs. You're going to find those in the College of Arts and Sciences. With College of Business and Public Administration, we do have a full College of Business, I should point out. So it's not just a business major or a couple business programs. It's a full, robust College of Business that's part of Drake University. And with this college, we offer about a dozen different specific business majors that you can study. And again, really easy to study multiples of those if you want to combine those into double majors or joint degrees. The College of Business at Drake is also accredited by the AACSB. And I understand that you may not have any idea what that acronym stands for, but it's an outside organization that reviews business programs at different colleges. And if that program meets their high standards, they award that school their accreditation, the AACSB accreditation. So a lot, in fact, probably a majority of business programs in the country do not have AACSB accreditation, but Drake's program does. So that's another good signal that we have a really strong experience in the College of Business that also really taps into our Des Moines location, which again, I'll talk about more in just a few minutes. School of Education is a really strong area for us as well. So if you have any interest in being elementary, middle, high school teacher, we have a perfect program for you in those fields. Drake is known in Iowa, especially for being a school of education and producing great teachers and educators. Across the state of Iowa, over 50% of Iowa's principals or superintendents have a Drake degree, either an undergrad degree or a graduate degree from our School of Education. So we are known as a powerhouse for education. With those programs, what's really nice is we also, just a couple years ago, opened a brand new building on campus specifically for our School of Education. And so in that space, there's the top of the line technology we have our own curriculum library. So if you want to explore what all those children's books or young adult books are and how you might want to use those in your career as a teacher, we have that resource available. So really great facilities on campus for students that are interested in education as well. Then with our School of Journalism and Mass Communication, within that specific program, we also have about 6 different majors or specific areas of study that you can focus on. Some of those are tied to the more traditional journalism subjects like news reporting or magazine media, but we also really excel at some of the more persuasive types of communication. So that's where we have majors in advertising, public relations, which I should say our public relations program is one of the best 40 in the entire world because we have a special accreditation from a public relations organization that only accredits 40 schools in the entire world. And so we have one of those accreditations. Really strong program for us. We also have a really unique program in this school called Strategic Political Communications. And this is a major that combines that sort of mass communication, that persuasive communication with politics. So if you have any interest in working in communications for a campaign or a politician or different kind of advocacy groups or issues, that's another perfect program for you as well. Then at Drake, we have College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. And this is also a big one for us because pharmacy actually remains one of our largest majors at Drake. So we do have a 6-year pharmacy program where you can come in and graduate in 6 years with your full PharmD degree and ready to have an amazing career as a pharmacist. In that program, we also do offer majors in health sciences, which is a great way to get started on a pre-med track or a track into other healthcare professions that you might be interested in. Then we also offer accelerated programs in occupational therapy and athletic training. And so with those majors, you're actually able to come in and depending on what path you take, 5 or 6 total years, you're able to actually get an undergraduate degree in health sciences and a graduate level degree in athletic training or occupational therapy. And then finally, we do have a law school. Now, the law school is mostly a graduate level program, something that you would do after you start with your undergraduate. But with the fact that Drake has our own law school, we can actually offer an accelerated path into law school. So we call this 3+3, where students can actually start in the Drake Law School as a full law student during their 4th year at Drake. So you actually are saving a year in terms of time, certainly, but also tuition money. So that's a great path for students that know they're interested in going to law school. And a lot of our undergraduate majors, not all of them, but a lot of them do allow you to do that 3+3 program. So that's definitely a great option for law students. So when we think more about academics, no matter what major you study, this is where that smaller side of Drake really comes into focus. We do have a 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of schools, especially smaller schools, talk about student to faculty ratios. It's one of those statistics that we love to just throw on the screen and act like that kind of tells the whole story, which it can certainly be a meaningful number. But what that actually means is you have personal mentorship and guidance every step of the way while you're at Drake. One of the ways that you'll see that as a student is when you are just getting started, you will be assigned an academic advisor. Now, pretty much every college offers advising and academic advising in some way, but a lot of schools offer advising in the form of like a kind of a central office that just advises, any students on campus. Similar to what you might experience with like a college counseling office. There's people who work with a bunch of different students and help you pick out classes and kind of work through that process. At Drake, your advisor that you would have from the very beginning is going to be a professor in your field of study. So if you are coming in as a neuroscience major, one of those neuroscience professors is going to, right off the bat, be your go-to person, someone that you can work with individually to not just pick classes and think about your major, but think about, okay, how could I add this cool double major? How could I add this minor? As you kind of go through the 4 years, how can I do some awesome research on campus? How can I do some internships that are going to prepare me for medical school or for grad school or for my first job? You're going to have that dedicated expert in your field to help guide you through that. That also means that if you have a double major, you'll have a second advisor in that second major. So you always, no matter what you're studying, you always have an individual person to work with to guide you every step of the way. And then when you think about the classroom experience, it does mean smaller classes. And that is important for sure. Again, something that you see a lot of small schools talk about, but it is important. Our average class size at Drake right now is 21. The vast majority of our classes are 30 students or less. And the largest classes you might have at Drake could be maybe 80. Like that's really kind of the upper limit in most situations. no matter how big your class is, and again, most of them are small, you are always being taught by a professor. So at Drake, we don't have any TAs or teaching assistants, which doesn't mean that a TA can't be a good teacher, but they're not a full professor that's truly the expert in what you're studying. And so at Drake, you're always going to have a full professor teaching you. And that can be a big difference than what you might find in some larger schools. So we also have things to do outside of the classroom, of course. That's a big part of the college experience. And like I mentioned earlier, students are living on campus. They're always on campus. So there's a lot to get involved with. And so right now we have about 140 student organizations at Drake. Some of them are tied to very specific majors or areas of study. So of course, if you're a music performance major, you might be in the choir. If you are, health sciences student, maybe you're in the pre-med club. There are a lot of those examples. But what's really nice at the school Drake size is that there's room for you to do pretty much whatever you want, no matter what you're actually studying. So if you're coming in as an actuarial science major, but you want to play violin in the orchestra just for fun, you can do that. You can audition. You can actually still receive music scholarships even as a non-major. Or if you want to, let's say, be a elementary education major, but you love journalism stuff and you would love to write for the school newspaper, Times Delphic, or Drake Magazine. That's something you can do even if you're not a journalism major. Like all those kind of crossover opportunities are there. So whatever you've been passionate about and involved with in high school, there's an extremely good chance you'll be able to continue that at Drake no matter what you're actually studying. At Drake, we also do have Division I athletics. This is another kind of big school feature that you typically don't see at a school Drake's size. But with Division I athletics, we have top-tier athletes competing in basketball, football, soccer, volleyball, track and field, golf, tennis, all those sorts of subjects or areas. And what's awesome is these are still some of the best athletes in the country that you are getting to know because Drake is a smaller school. These are students that are living in the residence halls. They're your neighbor. You are going to class with them. But then they are going to the Knapp Center and playing, an awesome basketball game. Now, the experience going to, for example, a basketball game at Drake is definitely still a smaller experience of what you might get at Mizzou or another big state school that's also Division I. But it's still high-level play, and you still get to have that sort of athletic experience. And I do have to just brag just for a sec. Our women's basketball team is one of the best in the country. For the past few years, they've pretty consistently been in the top 25 of the country. So we have some amazing teams that you can go see right on campus when you're a student as well. You can definitely have that athletic experience. And finally, one of the biggest things that happens on campus related to both athletics and other student organizations are the Drake Relays. I talk to a lot of students that sometimes know very little about Drake, except they've heard of the Drake Relays because it's such a big deal. And the Drake Relays, which you can see a picture of on the left, that is a massive track and field meet that we host on campus every April. It's been going on for about 110 years, so it's been around a long time. A lot of history, a lot of tradition behind it. And it brings tens of thousands of spectators and fans and athletes to Drake's campus every year. So when this is happening, first, it's an amazing athletic event because it's bringing the best in the world in track and field to Drake. They are coming and later going and competing in the Olympics, or they've already won medals and they're coming to Drake's campus to compete. It is that level of competition, but it's also an opportunity for the entire Drake community to celebrate Drake. In a lot of ways, it kind of acts like our homecoming. So during the relays, there are a lot of traditions that happen alongside it. A lot of alumni come back to campus to see what's new. But one of the biggest and most kind of favorite traditions is what you see on the right. This is something we call street painting, where we have an actual street on campus where students are able to get together every April before the relays happen. And with a student organization, they paint a square on the street that's tied into the relays theme for that year. That's the point of street painting, and at the end of it, we have a lovely painted street. Now, somewhere along the way, a few decades ago, the tradition became for